Monday morning. The basement break room of the Sterling Pinecrest Hotel in Asheville. Ellis Kane stood at the coffee machine in a faded blue flannel, hands the color of brick dust from a long night. The door opened. Margot Sterling walked in. 12 employees froze. She was the CEO. This was not her floor. She walked straight to him, stopped, spoke clearly enough for the whole room to hear. Last night was the anniversary of my father's death. I drank too much. You drove me home safely. I remember everything. I will not pretend to forget. Ellis had not answered. Conrad Vetch stood in the doorway watching. If stories about quiet men who carry more than they show are what bring you here, take a moment to subscribe before we go further, and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. We read everyone. Hours earlier, the Sterling Pinecrest had been quiet in the way Sunday nights always were. The leaf season was 3 weeks away. The lobby smelled of cedar and old paper from the front desk ledger no one used anymore. Margot Sterling came in alone. She did not take the VIP elevator. She walked through the lobby like a guest, past the brass plaque on the wall that read "Founded by Henry Sterling, 1974. At the bar, she sat in the third seat from the end and ordered a Glenfiddich, neat. The bartender was named Wes. He had been pouring drinks at the Pinecrest for 9 years. He remembered Henry Sterling's order without being told, and he poured Margot's without comment. She did not eat. She did not check her phone for the first 20 minutes. Conrad Vetch walked through on his way to the executive elevators. He saw her. He did not stop the first time. The second time, coming back from the loading dock with 2 security guards, he paused beside her chair. "You shouldn't be down here tonight, Margot," he said. His voice was warm in the way a doctor's voice is warm. "People will say you can't hold the line." She did not look at him. "Good night, Conrad." He smiled. He left. By 11:30, Wes had changed shifts. The new bartender did not know who she was. She ordered a third whiskey and started a message to Hollis Bramwell. She typed, "I am fine." She deleted it. She typed it again and sent it. He did not answer because he was already asleep. By midnight, her head was on the bar. Ellis Kane was 40 minutes into his maintenance shift. He had checked the boiler in the south wing. He had replaced 2 bulbs in the conference hallway. He came through the main lobby on his way to the bar storage closet because the ice maker behind the counter had been making a knocking sound for 3 nights, and he wanted to listen for it again. He saw her before the bartender did. He had worked at the Pinecrest for 6 months. He had never spoken to her. He knew what day it was because he had read the small notice in the staff calendar that said the executive offices would close at noon for a private memorial. He walked to her chair. He kept his hands at his sides. He spoke low so the bartender would not hear. "Ma'am, should I call you a cab?" She lifted her head. Her eyes did not focus. "I have a driver. Your driver went home at 10, ma'am. I checked the logbook on the way in." She blinked at him. She did not argue. He did not touch her shoulder. He offered his elbow. She took it. He walked her to the staff exit at the back of the kitchen because the lobby cameras pointed at the front, and he was not going to let her be photographed. He drove her car. He found her address on the registration in the glove box. He parked in her garage. He walked her up the porch step and unlocked the door with her key. He set her on the couch. He brought a glass of water from the kitchen and 2 ibuprofen from the cabinet above the sink because he had stayed in enough houses to know where people kept those things. He left through the back door. He locked it from the inside. He called a rideshare from the end of the driveway. Before he left, he wrote 1 line on the back of a grocery receipt and placed it on the kitchen table beside her keys. "Car's in the garage. Tomorrow will be hard, but you already got through the worst year. Monday morning." Margot woke in the clothes she had worn the night before. The blanket over her shoulders was the cashmere throw from the back of the couch. She had not put it there. The water glass and the 2 pills sat on the kitchen table. The keys sat beside them. The grocery receipt was folded once, the writing on the back facing up. She read it 3 times. "Tomorrow will be hard, but you already got through the worst year." She sat at the table for a long time. She showered. She drove herself to the office because her car was where the note said it would be. She walked past Tess at reception with the same morning nod she gave every other day. In her office, she shut the door. "Tess, pull the personnel file for Ellis Kane. Night maintenance. Everything we have. Bring it to me." Tess came back in 15 minutes. The file was 3 pages. a clean employment history at a contractor in Charlotte, a reference letter from a Methodist church in Greensboro, a signed background check, no social media, no LinkedIn, nothing. Margot read it twice. Then she did her own search. She typed Ellis Kane Consulting into a search bar she had not used in a year. The Bloomberg article came up on the second page of results. It was dated June 2017. The photograph was black and white. Ellis Kane, partner at Halverson and Crew, the man who had designed the Mercer defense, the textbook corporate maneuver that had saved Mercer Industrial from a $4 billion hostile takeover. Below the photograph, in a list of associated personnel, was a name underlined by Margot's own cursor before her brain caught up. Conrad Vetch, terminated 2018 for material fraud in the Carolina lighting valuation. Margot did not move. She read the line again. She closed her laptop. Conrad had been hired as her COO 6 months ago. Ellis Kane had applied for the Sterling Pinecrest maintenance position the following week. She did not need a calendar to do the math. He had come to Asheville because Conrad had been hired. He had come to watch the man he had once fired step into her company. She did not call Hollis. She did not print the article. She picked up her office phone and dialed the basement break room. The line rang in the small kitchen where the night maintenance crew kept their lunches. The morning attendant answered, "This is Margot Sterling." "Is Ellis Kane still on premises?" "He just finished his shift, ma'am. He's having coffee. Don't tell him I called." She hung up. She took the executive elevator down to the basement. She did not have a plan beyond walking in. She had a vow she had made to herself on the night her father was buried, a vow she had not been able to keep yet, that she would not lead the way her father had led, with silence about hard things. Her father had never apologized for anything in his life. He had loved her in a way that had felt like absence. She stepped out of the elevator. She walked down the corridor past the laundry. She pushed open the break room door. What she said, she had not planned. What she said came out of 1 year of practice in the dark. She said it for the 12 employees in the room, because if she said it in front of them, she would have to keep saying it. And she said it for Ellis Kane because she was telling him that she knew, and that she was giving him the choice of whether to step out or stay where he was. After she left the break room, Margot did not look for Ellis the rest of the morning. She went back to her office. She answered 7 emails. She approved the second quarter food and beverage report. She did not call him. She did not send a message. The next move belonged to him. This was her self-respect. Ellis finished his coffee. He did not speak to the staff around him. He nodded once to the morning supervisor and walked out the staff entrance to his truck. He drove home along the river. The road was empty at that hour. He turned into the small house on Cypress Lane and parked in the gravel. The grass needed cutting. The basil on the porch was thriving. The screen door slammed behind him the way it always did. Maeve was at the kitchen table. Her hair was in 2 braids his sister-in-law had taught him to do over the phone last winter. She had her science project spread out in front of her. 8 foam spheres, painted in 7 colors. Jupiter the largest. Saturn with rings cut from a paper plate. "Hi, Daddy." She did not look up. She was tying fishing line to Saturn. "Hi, Peanut." He poured himself a second coffee. He sat across from her. He held the fishing line for her while she tied the knot. "Daddy, are you taking me to school tomorrow?" "Every morning. That's the deal." She nodded. She finished her knot. She held Saturn up to the light to see if the rings would spin. He looked at the framed photograph above the kitchen door. Sarah, the year before she got sick, standing on the dock at Lake Lure with Maeve on her hip. Maeve had been 4. He had made Sarah a promise in the last week of her life. He had sat on the edge of the hospital bed and held her hand. He had said his daughter would not grow up the way he had grown up. He had said Maeve would not be a Bloomberg article. He had said his daughter would have ordinary mornings. He had meant every word. He had kept that promise for 4 years. He sat at the kitchen table watching his daughter spin a planet on a string and felt the promise begin to bend. That night he went back to work. He walked the second-floor corridor toward the maintenance closet. The light was on under the door of the CEO's office at the end of the hall. He did not stop. He did not knock. Margot was at her desk. She heard the soft footfall in the hallway. She did not turn from the window. She watched his reflection in the dark glass as he passed. Neither of them moved toward the other. In the basement of the executive wing, Conrad Vetch was watching the lobby footage from Sunday night on his laptop. He watched Margot leave through the kitchen exit on the arm of a man in a flannel shirt. He paused the footage. He rewound. He zoomed in on Ellis Kane's face. He picked up his phone and dialed the private investigator he had used twice before. "I want to know everything about a maintenance employee. Ellis Kane, night shift, by Wednesday." He hung up. He looked at the paused image on his screen. He sat with it a long time, then he smiled. A small, slow, private smile. The smile of a man who had just been handed a gift he had been waiting 6 months to receive. Wednesday afternoon. Margot sent one message through the internal hotel system to Ellis Kane's staff account, Dottie's Diner. 2 o'clock. Not a request. He came. He wore the same flannel. He had not gone home to change. Dottie's was 3 blocks from the Pinecrest. It was the kind of place where the waitresses called everyone honey, and the laminated menus had not been updated in 20 years. Margot had chosen it on purpose. It did not belong to her company. They sat in a booth near the back. The waitress brought coffee for both of them without asking. Margot did not ease into it. She had thought about how to start for 2 days, and decided against starting at all. "My father bought the Pinecrest in 1974 from a widow named Imogen Bell. She was selling because her husband had died, and the property tax was going to take it from her. He paid more than it was worth. He gave her a job in the front office for 15 years. Ellis listened. He did not touch his coffee. "If Conrad wins this, the buyer in Charlotte has already drafted the demolition permit. They are turning the Pinecrest into condominiums. 340 people who work for me will lose their jobs in the off-season. Most of them have been here since my father was alive." "I know," Ellis said. She looked at him. She had not expected that. "I know what Conrad did at Halverson," she said. "I know you fired him. I know what kind of move you made for Mercer. I am not asking you to come back to any of that. I just need to know, did you come to Asheville because of me? Or because of him?" Ellis was quiet for a long time. The waitress brought a plate of fries to the next booth. "Neither," he said. She waited. "My wife died in 2022. Pancreatic. It was fast. Your father flew up to Westchester for the funeral. He stood in the back of the church. He did not introduce himself. He did not speak. He just came. He sent a Christmas card every year after. I have 14 letters from him in a box at my house. I never answered any of them." He looked at his coffee. "I came to Asheville because Conrad was hired here. I knew what was going to happen. I did not come to fix it. I came to be present, the way your father had been present for me. That was the only thing I knew how to give back." Margot did not respond for a full minute. She had not known about the funeral. She had not known about the letters. "There is something I cannot give you, Margot," Ellis said. She waited. "I have an 8-year-old daughter. I made her mother a promise. My daughter will not grow up reading her father's name in trade publications. If I help you, I do not show. I stand behind. That is the only way I can do this." "I don't need you to show," Margot said. Her voice was lower than she had meant it. "I need you to be right." She paid for both coffees. The waitress called her honey. Margot did not flinch. They walked out separately. Ellis turned left toward his truck. Margot turned right toward her car. Neither of them looked back. Friday morning. Asheville Pulse, the local gossip blog, ran a story at 6 in the morning. Sterling CEO and mystery maintenance worker. Is the heiress's judgment slipping? The photograph in the article was blurred but recognizable. The booth at Dottie's. 2 cups of coffee. 2 people across from each other. The byline was a freelancer no one had heard of. The site had 30,000 local readers, which in Asheville was enough. Margot read it at her desk. She did not call communications. She did not draft a statement. Tess came in with her tablet open. "Do you want a response?" "No. A response gives it life. It's already on the Chamber of Commerce thread. Let it traîne." The moment Tess left, Margot picked up her cell phone, not the desk line, and called the principal of Asheville Mountain Elementary. She did not give her name. She said she was a local business owner. She said there was an article circulating that involved a parent at the school and a child who would not know how to defend herself if other children repeated what they had heard at home. She asked, please, that the teachers be quietly alerted to redirect any conversation in the classrooms today. She said she would not be calling again. She thanked the principal and hung up. She did not tell Ellis. She did not tell anyone. Saturday afternoon. Maeve came home from a half-day field trip to the Science Museum. Ellis was at the kitchen sink. "Daddy." "Yes, Peanut. At school yesterday, Riley said something about you." He turned the water off. He dried his hands. He sat down at the table. "What did Riley say?" "I don't really know. He started to say it on the rug. And Mrs. Garrett said, 'Sit down, Riley.' So he sat down. And then, we did the magnet lesson." Ellis was quiet. He looked at his daughter. She was unbothered. She was already reaching for the snack drawer. "Did Mrs. Garrett say anything else?" "She said everyone is allowed to help anyone. That was all." Maeve found the crackers. She turned around. "Daddy, can we get a fish tank? Maybe for Christmas." "Okay." She left the kitchen. He sat at the table a long time. He had not contacted the school. He had been planning to call Monday morning. Someone had gotten there first. That night, Ellis sat on the porch with the lights off. The crickets were loud. Across the lawn, the basil moved in the breeze. He had a number in his phone he had not dialed in 4 years. Daniel Pratt, former Halverson partner, editor at Institutional Investor since 2023, the kind of man who answered on the first ring, even at 11 at night. Ellis dialed. "Dan." "Ellis." "Jesus. Is everything okay? I need you to pull everything you have on Conrad Vetch. Not for print. Not yet. I need the file." There was a long pause on the other end. "I have been waiting 4 years for this call, Ellis. It's not what you think. I am not coming back. I just need the file. You'll have it Monday." Ellis hung up. Inside the house, Maeve was asleep on the couch with a book on her chest. He picked her up. He carried her to her room. He closed her door softly. He sat in the kitchen and looked at the framed photograph above the door for a long time. Tuesday of the following week. Hollis Bramwell asked to see Margot at her home, not at the office. He arrived at 6 in the evening with a small wooden box under his arm. It was not the leather attaché he carried to depositions. It was older. The corners were worn smooth. They sat in her father's study, the room she had not changed since the funeral. The desk was the way he had left it. The reading lamp was on. Hollis put the box on the desk. He did not open it. "Margot. Your father wrote a letter to a man named Ellis Kane every Christmas from 2022 to 2024. 14 letters in 3 years. He kept copies for me to hold. He asked me to give them to you only if you ever asked me, in plain words, why Ellis Kane was in Asheville." She did not move. "I am telling you now because I believe you would have asked me by Friday." She opened the box. The letters were arranged in order. The first was dated December 8, 2022. 3 weeks after Sarah Kane's funeral. The paper was her father's stationery, the cream-colored sheets with the small navy monogram at the top. She read, "Ellis, I have no words. I lost Lillian when Margot was 12. I am writing only so you know one thing. The grief does not end. It changes shape. Your daughter will be the one who teaches you that, Henry." She read the second, and the third. Her father's handwriting got smaller over the years. The letters got shorter. He never asked Ellis for anything. The last letter was dated January 17, 2025, 3 months before her father's death. He had been on the second round of chemotherapy. The handwriting wavered. "Ellis, Margot is ready. I am not worried about the company. I am worried she will be alone in the way I was alone. If you are ever near her, do not save her. Just be present, Henry." Margot closed the letter. She put it on top of the others. She did not cry. "Did he know?" she said. "About Conrad?" "He did not. Conrad was hired after his death. Ellis knew. He moved on his own." "Did Ellis know about the letters being kept here?" "No. I asked him for the letters last Friday. I told him you would want to see them eventually. He gave them to me without questions." She looked at the box. "What does this mean, Hollis?" "It means your father did not arrange anything. It means he wrote letters to a friend. And his friend remembered." She sat with that for a long time. Hollis did not press her. He stood. He left the box. He let himself out the front door. She stayed in her father's study until 10 o'clock. She read all 14 letters twice. She found her own name in every one of them, not as an instruction, as a worry, as a question, as a private piece of love her father had not known how to say to her face. She picked up her phone. She did not call Ellis. She drove to the Pinecrest. She took the executive elevator to the basement. She walked through the back corridor past the laundry room. past the break room where she had stood 8 days ago. She stopped at the open door of the maintenance garage. Ellis was inside. He was closing his toolbox. He looked up. He saw the box in her hands. He stood very still. She held the box at her side. She did not step into the garage. She stayed in the doorway. "You kept these 4 years," she said. He looked at the box. "Yes." "You did not write back." "No." "Why?" He was quiet. He set the toolbox on the workbench. He wiped his hands on a rag. "Because your father did not need a reply. He was not writing to be answered. He was writing the way a man prays. I read every letter the night I got it. I put it back in its envelope. I put it in the drawer. That was my answer." She nodded slowly. She had known the answer before she asked. "Did you know he wrote about me in every one of them?" "I knew. My father never wrote to me, Ellis. Not once. Not a birthday card. Not a Christmas note. I have nothing in his handwriting. He loved me in a way that always felt like absence, and I just found out he was practicing how to love me by writing to you." Ellis took a slow breath. He stepped 1 pace closer to her. He stopped. "He loved you very much," he said. "Every letter has your name. He just did not know how to tell you that out loud. Some men only know how to write it sideways." She closed the distance herself. 1 step, then another. She set the box on the workbench beside his toolbox. She looked up at him. It was very quiet in the garage. The fluorescent light above the door hummed. He could have kissed her then. The room was empty. The hallway was empty. The cameras did not point into the garage. He stepped back, half a pace. Not far, but far enough. "Margot." "I know," she said. "I am still on your payroll. You are in the middle of a takeover. If this happens here, tonight, in this room, it is on the news by Wednesday. Not just for you, for her, for my daughter. I will not do that to either of you." She looked at him. She did not move closer again. She did not move away. "Okay." He picked up a USB drive from the workbench and held it out to her. The drive was older than her phone, scratched along the edge. Daniel Pratt at Institutional Investor put this together over the weekend. Conrad's offshore account in Belize. The wire transfers from the Charlotte buyer in March. The emails he sent to Asheville Pulse from his own laptop. The draft demolition permit signed last Tuesday, before your board meeting was even on the calendar. It is all there. It is clean. Dan has the same file. He runs his story Monday morning regardless of what happens in your boardroom. She took the drive. "You should be in that room," she said. "You do not need me in that room. You should be in that room because I am going to introduce you as my strategic advisor. Not because I need you, because I want them to see the man my father trusted. Because Conrad needs to see your face. Because after Friday, you are not on my payroll anymore. And after Friday, you and I are not what we are right now." He looked at her. "What are we right now? You are the maintenance employee who carried his boss home, and I am the woman who did not pretend to forget." She turned. She walked out of the garage with the box and the drive. He stood in the empty room and listened to her footsteps move down the corridor until he could no longer hear them. Then he picked up his toolbox. He locked it. He turned out the light. He went home. Friday morning. The Sterling Hospitality Group conference room, on the top floor of the Asheville office tower. 11 board members at the long walnut table. 2 outside attorneys, Conrad Vetch in the COO's seat to the right of the CEO chair. A private equity representative from Charlotte at the far end, in a charcoal suit, with his briefcase already open. Conrad had distributed his proposed leadership restructuring memo at the start of the meeting. He had been speaking for 15 minutes about the necessity of seasoned operational stewardship in a transitional period. The door opened. Ellis Kane walked in. He wore a white button-down shirt, khaki pants, no jacket. He carried a single manila folder. Conrad stopped speaking. "This room is for shareholders," Conrad said. "I invited him," Margot said. "He is the strategic advisor I retained last week. He stays." Conrad looked at her. His face did not change, but the man from Charlotte in the charcoal suit closed his briefcase by half an inch. Margot did not give the room to Ellis. She stood. She opened her own laptop. She turned the screen toward the table. 2 months ago, Conrad Vetch opened a personal account at Banco Atlantico in Belize. In March, he received 3 wire transfers from a shell entity owned by the Charlotte buyer represented at this table by Mr. Halloran. The total was $800,000. The man from Charlotte did not move. In May, Conrad emailed Asheville Pulse from his Sterling Hospitality laptop a tip about a CEO and a maintenance employee. The IP signature is in this file. The same week he ordered an HR audit of the maintenance staff. That was research, not management. Tuesday of last week, Margot continued. Conrad signed a preliminary demolition permit for the Pinecrest property with the Asheville zoning office. The permit is dated 3 days before this board was informed of any sale conversation. I am calling that a fiduciary breach. Conrad spoke. His voice was tight. These documents are forgeries. Ellis spoke for the first and only time. Daniel Pratt at Institutional Investor has the same file. The story runs Monday morning regardless of the vote in this room. It is not a question of whether this becomes public. It is a question of what posture this board chooses by Monday. The man from Charlotte stood up. He picked up his briefcase. He left the room without speaking. The senior board member, a retired surgeon named Hattie Bell, looked across the table at Conrad. I move that Conrad Vetch be removed from the position of Chief Operating Officer effective immediately. The vote was 9-2. The 2 were abstentions. There were no votes against. Conrad stood. He buttoned his jacket. He walked to the door. He paused with his hand on the handle and looked at Ellis. You lost everything for her. Ellis met his eyes. I lost everything in 2022, Conrad. She is not the reason I lost. She is the reason I came back. Conrad left. The room was quiet. Margot closed her laptop. She thanked the board. She walked out into the hallway. Ellis followed her at 3 paces. In the corridor by the elevator, she turned to him. Thank you. You said it yourself in there. You did not need me. I needed you anyway. The elevator opened. She stepped in. He did not follow. The doors closed between them. He stood in the empty hallway and listened to the cables hum until the car had reached the lobby. Saturday evening. Ellis's house on Cypress Lane. The porch light was on. The basil had been watered. Margot came up the gravel drive in her own car at 6:30. She carried a bowl of cucumber salad she had bought from the deli on Marymount Avenue. She had not cooked. She had not pretended. She had stopped on the way. Maeve opened the front door. She was wearing a yellow sweatshirt with a planet on the front. Her braids were uneven. She held a small object in her right hand. Are you Miss Margot? She said. I am. My dad said you work at the big hotel. I do. He made Jupiter. She held up the painted foam sphere. The paint was streaked from where the brush had run dry. The string was tied with a careful, child-made knot. Margot crouched. She was wearing a dark sweater and jeans. She did not touch the planet. She looked at it carefully. That is the best Jupiter I have ever seen. It is the biggest. I know. Ellis stood in the kitchen doorway with a dish towel over his shoulder. He watched his daughter give Margot a tour of the 7 planets hanging from the dining room light fixture. He did not interrupt. Dinner was spaghetti. Ellis had made the sauce from scratch. Margot's cucumber salad sat in the middle of the table beside a bowl of garlic bread that Maeve had buttered herself. Maeve talked about Mrs. Garrett. She talked about the field trip. She talked about Riley, who had not said anything about anything since the week before last. Ellis and Margot did not look at each other when she said this. At one point, Margot's eyes moved past Ellis's shoulder to the framed photograph above the kitchen door. A woman, a child, a dock. She did not ask. He saw her looking. He did not look away. Lake Lure, he said. The summer Maeve was for. She has your hands, Margot said. And her mother's eyes. Yes. The conversation moved on. After dinner, Margot washed the dishes. Ellis dried. Maeve fell asleep on the couch with the science book open across her chest, at the chapter on Saturn's rings. He picked her up. He carried her to her room. He came back. Margot was standing at the kitchen doorway. He stopped. Friday a week ago, he said. Maeve came home from school. Riley had started to say something on the rug and Mrs. Garrett shut it down. I have been wondering all week why a teacher would step that fast on a third-grade rumor. Margot did not answer. You called the school. She nodded once. Before I knew there was anything to call about. Yes. He took one step. He took her hand. Both of them. He held them in his at chest height. He did not kiss her. I am giving notice Monday morning. 2 weeks. After that, I am taking 3 small advisory accounts. All local. All daytime. Why? Because Maeve needs her father in the daylight. And because I want to come up the porch of your house someday and not be your employee when I do." She did not speak for a moment, then she said, very quietly, "I would like that." He squeezed her hands. He let them go. She drove home through Asheville at 9. The streets were empty. The mountains were dark behind the city. She did not put the radio on. July. 4 months after the board meeting, Conrad Vetch had moved to Dallas in May. The Institutional Investor article had run on a Monday morning in March, and the story had been picked up by the regional business press by the end of that week. The civil suit Conrad filed against Sterling Hospitality had been dismissed in late June for lack of standing. The Pinecrest had reopened the East Wing on schedule. 340 staff had kept their jobs. Margot Sterling had begun her monthly board meetings with a new opening item. The agenda called it "What I Do Not Yet Know." Hattie Bell had told her in the elevator after the first one that her father would have laughed at the phrase and approved of it anyway. In May, on Maeve's 9th birthday, Margot had written her first letter. It was short. It was on the cream stationery with the small navy monogram. She had given it to Maeve in person. Maeve had read it once and put it in a small wooden box she kept on the shelf above her bed. The box had been her grandfather's. Margot had given it to her the week before. Ellis worked from home on Mondays and Wednesdays. He picked Maeve up at 3 on every weekday. He had not gone back to New York. He had not put his name on a single publication. The Sterling retainer was one of 3 local accounts. He did not need the other 2. He kept them because he liked the work. Sunday afternoon. Late July. The backyard of the house on Cypress Lane. The grass had been cut. The basil had spread to a second pot. Maeve was running across the lawn after the neighbor's golden retriever. She was laughing. Ellis was at the grill. He turned a burger. The smoke moved sideways in the slow breeze. Margot came up the driveway with a bottle of wine in one hand and a hardcover book in the other. The book was the Penderwicks. She had asked Ellis a week ago what Maeve was reading, and he had told her. Maeve saw her from across the lawn. She abandoned the dog. She ran. "Miss Margot, are you staying tonight? Daddy is making ice cream for dessert." Margot looked at Ellis. He smiled. "I am staying," Margot said. They ate at the picnic table. Halfway through her hamburger, Maeve set down her fork. "Miss Margot, I read your letter again last night." "Did you? You wrote that the rings on Saturn were the part that made you proud, even though I was the one who made them." "I did." "Why?" Margot thought about it. "Because the rings were the hardest part, and nobody asked you to put them in." Maeve considered this. She nodded. She picked up her fork. Ellis did not look up from his plate. His shoulders changed. Margot saw it. She did not say anything. Maeve gave a complete report on the second Penderwick book by the time they reached the ice cream. The Fireflies came out at 8:30. By 9, Maeve was asleep on the porch swing under a blanket Ellis had brought from the linen closet. He carried her inside. He came back out. The porch light was on. The screen door was closed. Margot was standing at the railing. He came up beside her. He put his hand on her cheek. She closed her eyes. He kissed her. Slowly. Without hurry. The kiss that had been 4 months in waiting and 4 years before that. When they parted, she opened her eyes. She smiled. The full smile. The first one of the whole story. "You waited a long time," she said. 4 months. 4 years. He looked at her. At the porch light. At the small house. At the daughter asleep behind the screen. At the woman he had once carried home on a Sunday night because her father had stood in the back of his wife's funeral and said nothing. Worth every one.